I'd like to share with you what the Father is doing in terms of fellowships all across the world. There is currently a revival around the truth, where many are returning to holiness, to obedience to His instructions, returning to the walk of the Messiah, walking as He walked, where they understand that He is the one who makes them holy, but they have decided that they will continue and they will strive to walk in the holiness that their Messiah walked in. On the other hand, there is also another revival, a revival of spirit, where many are realizing that when they read the book of Acts and they look outside or they look in their churches, they don't see the same thing in many cases. And they've started to apply the things that we read about in the book of Acts, laying their hands on the sick and seeing them recover, proclaiming the gospel openly and boldly, casting out the demons, etc. And in both of these groups, there is a move away from, in many areas at least in the world, what we consider much of traditional church. In many churches around the world, there is a departure that's been so far gone from both the truth and the spirit of the Word, that these people who are awakening to these things are realizing that they can't fellowship with those people anymore, because they realize sometimes that the people who are around them in church are so far gone from the walk of the Messiah that there's nothing in common anymore. They realize that the amount of unholiness as well as the unwillingness to apply the Spirit and the truth in their life is so far gone that fellowship almost becomes impossible. And while both of these groups, the natural move of them has been to move into homes and to start fellowshipping together amongst themselves independently, what the Father is currently doing is He's moving in these groups and He wants to move them together. Much of this is going to be a process of grinding, a process where there's going to be uncomfortable things going on, because these groups have got their own independent revelations that are from God, but usually these two groups lack the revelation of the other. But God is doing something amazing, where He's teaching the truth group all about the Spirit and the Spirit group all about the truth. Many of those who are in these groups independently are not going to want to hear about the other. They're not going to want this at all. They want to stay alone. They want to stay in this unity because of their pride and puffed upness, because they believe that the revelation that they've had independently from God is everything there is to know and is all fulfilled. But they fail to understand that they lack half the picture. And so, brothers and sisters, today I want to proclaim this to you. So when it happens, and it's happening slowly but surely, that you be ready and awake for it. And also to not harden your heart towards the workings of the Spirit, or harden your heart against the revival of truth and the keeping of His commandments that's happening all around the world. God is bringing these two elements together, and you're going to have to go along with it whether you want to or not. With this, there also comes an element of lowliness for many people around the world. Many people are in distant countries where Spirit and truth, these revivals, if you will, it's a scarce thing. There's so little people in the country that are on the same level that they feel scattered. They feel like a remnant. They feel like there's no one else around them. But it's natural, it's normal. I want to tell you that the Father has been doing this, and He has been causing pockets of revival all around the world to walk as their Messiah. And so if you feel like that, I want to just tell you, if you've got no fellowship, no one who thinks like you, I want to tell you that it's okay. But also I want to warn you to not think that you've got something and cause your heart to be puffed up. Go, and even if you're alone, love on the orphan, love on the sick, love on those who don't agree with you. Love on all, because that's how we're going to get this to spread, is by the uncompromising love of Yeshua. What did Yeshua do? What did Jesus do? You see, brothers and sisters, we need to understand something, that this spirit and truth thing that I've been going on about was the very life of Yeshua. And so his life was something that opposed everything that was going on this earth when he stepped foot on this earth. Everything. Don't think that, everyone was on board. Most weren't. In fact, there was only a handful of disciples who decided they want to follow him and who were discipled by him. And when the crowds got way too big before Yeshua, he got suspicious. And he dispersed them by throwing out words and sayings that were too hard on them. Because see, the gate is narrow, the way is narrow, and few will find it. And so if you're on that narrow path and you see few around you, don't be surprised. But also don't let that stop you from visiting those who are not on the same page, because it certainly didn't stop Yeshua. He went to the tax collector's home. He went to the pagan's home. He went to the drunkard's home, and the Pharisees opposed it. So don't be a Pharisee and oppose it yet again. Rather, visit the same homes Yeshua would visit. You see, brother and sister, he didn't necessarily go to fellowship in the same way that we would with those who are on the same page as we are, or in Messiah, but he would go to shine a light. He would not separate himself from those who are maybe not living in holiness, or from those who are maybe not praying for the sick or casting out the demon, or who are not baptizing people every week. He didn't separate himself from them. He had mercy and he had grace. And with his mercy and grace, he loved them into the kingdom. So I want to ask you, why aren't we doing that? Let's get on board. Let's love on each other. Let's love on those who aren't in the kingdom yet. And I'm not, brother and sister, I want to clarify yet again. I'm not talking about a compromise. I'm not talking about going to celebrate pagan festivals. I'm not talking about going to do pagan acts. I'm not talking about eating, walking, doing everything like the pagans do. In fact, I'm advocating we don't. I'm advocating we walk as Yeshua walked, an uncompromising walk, but we walk it out in front of the pagan, out in front of those who think they're following Yeshua, but in fact they're not, out in front of the Pharisee. And even if we get opposed, we're going to speak truth. And see, brother and sister, this is what the Father has called us to be a light to the nation, not to hide our light under a basket, but to be a shining light that will bring repentance to everyone around us. And see, that light is not going to come, brother and sister, by simply staying in a little fellowship and never sounding the trumpet outside of it. You see, we need to do things in our community. We need to do things. Maybe visit a church, even churches you don't agree with. Maybe, whatever you need to do, go on the street, whatever you need to do to reach those who aren't there. Because, brother and sister, these revelations that we've received, whether it's on spirit and truth side, whatever side you're on, you need to share it. You need to walk it out because you have received it for a purpose. You have received it to give. You've not received it to keep it to yourself. You see, I've asked myself many times over and over and over and over and over again, Father, I've asked God, why have you given me this? Why have you shown me the things you've shown me? Why? I'm not special. Why? And it's always and I started realizing, instead of asking myself and asking God that question over and over and over again, I need to start asking God, how can I share this with the nations? You see, brother and sister, and that's what the point is of you having the revelation. It's not just to walk it out for yourself. Yeshua didn't come for himself. He came for others. He came for the salvation of the world. Now, are you here for yourself, or are you here for the salvation of the world, is my question to you today. You see, I'm not advocating we hold hands with the world I'm advocating walking before it so it comes to salvation. May God bless you and keep you, shine his face upon you, and lift up his countenance upon you. Subscribe to his YouTube channel if this blessed you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.